Hello there. Thanks for stopping by. Um, and good to see you again. This week, my thoughts have been turning to the role of IT and digitalisation, I suppose, in the supply chain during the time of lockdown. It was prompted by a number of things that have cropped up. Not least an email I had last week from Roger Kagan, DGSA, and in the days when I was chairing the VCA Dangerous Goods Seminar every year, he could always be counted on to come up with a searching question. And indeed, he's now, without the VCA seminar going ahead, he's still doing it, raised a couple of things relating to the inability of IT to fully address training in particular, but what people need to know. And he said that in his experience, there are a lot of people who are responsible for booking cargo under IMDG code, who haven't been properly trained, who don't know the regulations. Is that a problem of IT? I'm not sure. It's a problem of management and training, quite possibly. It also raised a question, I know they've been around for quite some time now, online systems for checking that your declaration is correct, which is a great idea, but I wonder to what extent those systems are able to cope with all the nuances of the dangerous goods regulations in their various forms. While it's relatively straightforward to copy the requirements from the regulations, can you take account, for instance, of all the derogations and special multilateral agreements, special permits, and so on, and the things that you can do sometimes that you can't always do, like there are goods that are forbidden for transport by air, which you can sometimes transport by air if, for instance, you want to get them to northern Canada or Alaska in the middle of winter. Similarly, if you're moving freight from Sweden to Finland, you can forget about the IMDG code because it's under the Baltic Agreement, you do it by ADR, those sort of things. I'd be interested in if anybody's got any comments on that. But of course, with all systems like that, you go back to the old phrase that computer science used very early on, which was garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have the right information put in, how are you going to get the right answer out of it? Roger also raised the question of testing for competence under the IATA dangerous goods regulations. Specifically, he mentions packing goods, and the people he's talked to said that, well, their trainers never did that. And of course, would a trainer necessarily know how to pack that particular cargo, that particular product in that company's particular box? And Paul Horner mentioned this when I spoke to him recently. He said, well, you can't do competency-based training, or you can't check for competency online. But in any case, that should be the responsibility of the company management rather than the trainer, because it's only the company that knows its systems and procedures, which is fair enough. And putting that aside, and I hope, Roger, I've answered your questions to some extent. I also had an interesting chat with Detman Trenth, who's the founder and brains behind, if you like, Intermodal Telematics, IMT, who specialise in telematics systems for tank containers. They have agreements with CIMC and NT Tank, and have done a lot of work with Hoyer over the years. And they have been trying to plug the gaps in global coverage for telematics systems, particularly for unpowered transport assets like tank containers or indeed rail wagons. And some advances that he mentioned, that the units are now solar powered with very high capacity batteries, so that they can last actually even without sunlight for a good few months. So you can put something on a ship and track it all the way across the ocean. And also interesting stuff that doesn't even occur to the likes of you and me, I'm sure, that it's necessary now to have two modems, one for 2G and 3G connectivity and a different one for 4G and 5G connectivity. So it's interesting to hear how those advances are coming along. It was also noticeable, I had a press release yesterday from Berchi, and Berchi have been, going down the digitalisation route as a lot of their competitors have been, and mentioned that, in fact, at the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic and the start of lockdown, that they managed to transfer 80% of their office staff to home working within a matter of 3 days, because the systems were already in place to allow them to do that. I've heard that from others as well, and I do wonder to what extent offices are going to be manned again in the future. I mean, it's all very well that you get to see your colleagues and you can talk about stuff, but you can do that by Zoom or Skype or Microsoft Teams or any number of platforms these days. How often do you need to be in the office? Personally, I reckon on once a fortnight, but once a week might be appropriate. I have heard in the UK, for instance, that the commercial property market is tanking because a lot of companies have furloughed staff or laid people off. They don't need such a big space, and they're looking at how they managed to do their business, their normal business, during the lockdown with people work from home. And by and large, it seems that it's worked very well. Personally, I think I can get a lot more done working at home than I can do in the office, where there are all any number of distractions. I can keep getting distracted here by the need to go out and deadhead the roses, but that's, I'll leave that for the weekend generally. So I think that's something to think about as we emerge from lockdown. Whether we'll be going straight back into it again or not is another matter. But I also wanted to mention one thing that I noticed in the initial analysis. It's still a work in progress at the moment, but the annual Label Master Dangerous Goods Confidence Survey that IATA and HCB help out with, this year focused very much on how things were going with the lockdown and the virus and so on. Interestingly, few respondents said that they'd had trouble keeping track of cargoes while they were en route, which suggests that they've got their telematics and their track and trace working okay. On the other hand, a lot more of them said that they had difficulty in scheduling or anticipating the arrival of goods and scheduling the dispatch of goods, which to me at least suggests that while they might know where their goods are while they're en route, they haven't really tied that information in to their order processing systems, their SAP systems, and so on. And it reminds me that a couple of years ago, I think, when we first started talking about Industry 4.0 and what digitalisation could do for industry, there was an immovable opinion amongst many that what we were talking about was just telematics with knobs on. And I tried to make the point that once companies actually investigate and really think about what these new incoming systems can do for them, they'll realise that it can transform the business in ways they hadn't really considered. And I think now that what the lockdown and the whole virus disruption has made companies think about that and how they're going to do business. And as we said, I think 2 years ago, with a new group of younger people coming on board and replacing us old fellows, then they're going to be much better at doing it and have loads more ideas. So if you haven't yet thought about that, I would urge you to go away and look at some of the coverage in the July issue of HCB, which is now online, because there's a lot of people talking about different things, and a lot of them have broad applicability and maybe something that you can think about using yourself. So that's it for me for this week. Stay well, take care, and see you same place, same time next week. Thanks for watching.